Hey, my name is Steve, composer, engineer and lecturer. Welcome back to the channel and your first steps into the KONTAKT sampler. We have already taken a look at the introduction, a little bit about KONTAKT sampling and planned our first instrument. And we've even recorded our first audio samples. If you need to at any time, you can jump back and revisit those videos. But today we're going to take a look at recording hardware synths. Let's dive in. Okay, so sampling a synth, a hardware synth, could be a really great option for you. Not only are they really awesome at sound design, a really versatile tool that could be really cool to kind of make something your own, they also don't rely on microphones. They don't rely on acoustically treated rooms of any kind. This could be a great way to start your journey into sampling, because there are less variables, less equipment required. If you can get access to a hardware synth, whether it be a small one or a large one, a cheap kind of starting one or something much bigger, it helps to kind of get to grips with sampling a little bit in just using something as simple as this. Most hardware synthesizers, they just have a line level output or an instrument level output, and you can easily connect it to an audio interface with one or two cables. That is the case for a lot of these synths behind me, and I've actually used these in order to create the sound. Specifically the Artura Polybrute, one of my favorite synths. I should hope, because it's pretty expensive. It's been worth it though. I have really enjoyed it and I've got a lot of use out of it. So I'd recommend it if your budget stretches. But if you're starting out, you can start out with something a lot smaller, a lot more simple. Now I've already gone ahead and I've made some pluck-like textures. I went on and adjusted a lot of different settings, started from a basic sort of sawtooth sound, tuned everything the way that I like it, wanting to get a sort of particular plucky type texture that would maybe go well with the bowls that I'd already recorded. So I've got it connected here. If I play a couple of notes, you'll see what I mean. Now, one of the great aspects of this synth and a lot of synths out there now is it has MIDI USB, and that is fantastic. That's actually how I'm playing the synth that's over there with my keyboard in front of me here. I have a USB cable to that synthesizer, which is connected to my computer, and a USB cable from my keyboard controller in front of me to my computer, so they're both meeting there in the middle. And then what I've done is when I created a new track, I used Logic's external MIDI, and then I set the MIDI destination to the Polybrute. I've got a number of synths that are turned on right now, a number of different things that I could use, but if I select Polybrute all, it's going to send it to all MIDI channels down the Polybrute, and that means that any MIDI that I sequence in my DAW, or any MIDI I play in front of me on my keyboard is going to go play on that keyboard or on that synthesizer, which is fantastic. That is just MIDI output though. Then I've actually got to connect the software synth's audio output because I can't send MIDI back. I've got to send audio back. So on this channel below, I've then got it coming in on 7 and 8 on my audio interface, and I've got the input monitoring on there, and that's how we can hear the sound. Only if I select this one though, because this is the one that's sending my MIDI out. So if I select this one, you can see that it's actually sending the MIDI out. But if this one's selected, then I haven't got any MIDI output being sent from my computer. So when I tap on the keys here, nothing happening. What this means is that I can now be a little bit hands-free, which is really awesome. So I've jumped in here, and if I open up this MIDI region here, you can see that I've pre-programmed all of the notes. Let me zoom in a little bit here. You can see that they last for 2 bars each at a BPM of 120. So that's sort of like 4 seconds or so with, you know, a bar in the middle, so about 2 seconds or so in the middle. So that gives it enough time to play the whole note to be able to sample everything, and enough space between each note to make sure there's no sound ringing out and reverb or anything like that. Then what I did is I simply recorded this one, I record armed this one, and I just hit record and allowed this MIDI to play and then have this recorded. Very simple, very straightforward, a really easy way of doing it. I really love this method, and this isn't something that's only available in Logic. Plenty of DAWs out there send MIDI information. I use Ableton quite a bit as well, particularly in the live environment, and it does that beautifully. It does it really, really well. So there are plenty of DAWs out there that can do this. This isn't the only one. But this allows you to program everything in, hit record, and walk away. Okay, so once I'm done there, I would mute that and I'd have my beautiful new track here. Now I want to do the same things that I did before. I want to denoise. I want to adjust them all into individual samples. I want to fade in and fade out. I want to do any tuning if I need to. Now, one question that might strike you is, why do I need to noise treat something that was directly plugged into my audio interface? It's a good question. This synthesizer that I've been sampling is in fact an analog synth, and it creates its own noise because the analog circuitry adds imperfections. It's often what people seek from analog devices, right? They want those kind of like gritty, noisy imperfections that come through with analog stuff. Again though, in a sample library, when you start sampling all of that and then start laying 10 versions of that on top of each other, you're going to end up with problems because you're going to end up with 10 times the noise as you hold down a 10-note chord. So stripping the noise will still be recommended even with analog synthesizers or guitars or anything like that. If you can strip the noise, it means you can remove hiss, you can remove hum, all those sorts of things that get in the way of the actual pure recording. So then you can break them up into individual regions, add your fades, do any tuning if you want to. In this case, I won't need to because it was all tuned by the synthesizer, so it's all good to go. And then you have those audio files that you can export out. And in this case, you'll have 10 new audio files ready to go. Now, if you want to see that whole process in more detail, check this link above because you may have missed the previous video where I broke down how to prepare samples for your sample library. So do check that, check in the description as well. The link will be there. This is part of a huge course for KONTAKT sampling, so you might want to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. All right, now we have 2 sample groups ready to go. Some of our bells from earlier and our plucks now from the synthesizer. We have one more way of making audio sources that I want to explore in this series, and that is to reprocess audio that you've already recorded. So in the next video, we'll be jumping in, taking a look at the audio that we've already recorded from these last 2 videos and manipulating it some more to make an entirely new category of samples. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch that video, and why not ding the bell so you get notified for it. So subscribe on your way out, but otherwise I will catch you in the next one.